In this video, we're going to practice solving absolute value equations. So when I solve absolute value equations, sometimes it's hard to remember that I need to basically do two problems instead of just one. So I kind of think of a story to help me do it. So what I think of is I'm a big fan of zombie movies, and so I think of that in a situation. So sometimes you have a compound or a place where you're safe, and that's inside these absolute value markers right here, right? So that's our compound. So here, our 3x plus 9, right now they're safe. There are no zombies around them. So this minus 10 right here, that would be a zombie because it's something outside of our absolute value protection and something that needs to be dealt with first. And then the equal sign kind of represents like the world and what's out there. So right now we see -4 is out there, which is normally not good, but we don't really know until we get rid of all of the zombies on our side. So what we're going to do first is we are going to get the absolute value symbols by themselves. So we're going to get rid of the zombie here, our plus 10. So we're going to do that by adding 10. And that's going to leave us with the absolute value of 3x plus 9 equals a 6. So we have our absolute value symbol by itself. There's no other zombies around it. And if we look out to our world over here, we see that we end up with a positive 6, which means that we can work this out, that the world looks like it's better. Now, sorry, that kind of jumped over a little bit. Now there's people inside. Okay, there's people inside of this 3x plus 9, right? And they think, let me rewrite that. So 3x plus 9, so those people. And they think that everything is honky-dory. Everything is just fine. But there are also people inside, that same 3x plus 9, and they're a little worried that really the zombies aren't gone. We just don't see them. And so we've set up both of our problems now, and we're ready to work them out. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. So we get 3x equals -3. Divide by 3. So here we're getting an x equals a -1. And then we're going to do the same steps over here. And we're going to get a -4. So here we have two answers. X equals -1 and x equals -4. And we just need to check those to make sure that we're going to get the correct answer. And so in order to check those, we're just going to plug them in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to check our work. So we're going to have the absolute value of 3 times -1 plus 9 minus 10. Oh, looks like we're going to run out of room. Let me move that really fast. And then that should equal a -4. And so if we plug this into the calculator, and when I say let's plug this in, what I'm referring to is that we need to plug in this, right? All of that. And we can do that in pieces. Oh, it keeps kind of jumping over. So actually, let's go ahead and let's move our check over here to this side. That would probably be a little bit easier. So I'm going to have the absolute value of, let's see here, that's going to come out to a 6 minus 10. So the absolute value of 6 is 6, and 6 minus 10 is a -4. So here I see that those work. And we're going to check our second one. So the absolute value of 3 times -4 plus 9 minus 10. Does that equal a -4? And here we're going to end up getting, not the same answer. We're going to have a -3 minus 10. So +3 minus 10, and that's a -7. Those don't match. So let's go back to our work and let's just see, did we make a mistake? And we did, because -6 minus 9 is not -12. -6 minus 9 is a -15. So when we divide that by 3, we should have a -5. So let's plug in the -5. Oops, not with the highlighter. And now if we do that, here we're going to see that we're going to get the absolute value of 6 minus 10. The absolute value of 6 is 6, and 6 minus 10 is a -4, and now they match, meaning our answers are x equals -1 and x equals -5. So it's really important to make sure that you are checking your answers. Let's do one more example. So if we come over here and we look at our next example, we see that we've got our absolute values, but we need to get that 5 on the other side. So we'll subtract 5 from both sides, and that's going to give us the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 4. And we look at our 4, and our 4 is positive, which means that we can work this out. So remember that we have the two types of people, right? We have the types of people who think everything is fine outside, and we have the types of people in the compound who think that everything is not fine, that it's all a giant illusion. So we're going to solve and get the x by itself and get x equals a 6, and solve and get the x by itself and get x equals a negative 2. And now we're just going to check those and see if we are correct. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug those values in and see if we get, in fact, a 9. So the absolute value of 6 minus 2 is a 4. And the absolute value is 4 is 4. And 4 plus 5 is, in fact, a 9. So those match. And we'll check our second one. So the absolute value of negative 2 minus 2 plus 5 equals 9. And that's going to give us the absolute value of negative 4 plus 5. And the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. And 4 plus 5 is 9. And we have matches. So that tells us that x equals 6 is correct and x equals negative 2 is correct. Well, what happens when our absolute value has something being multiplied with it, like we have here? Well, nothing really changes. We still have to get rid of that 4 to be able to know, can we do this problem? So we're going to divide both sides by 4, and that's going to leave us with the absolute value of 2x plus 7 equals 4. And we check, and our 4 is a positive number, which means we can work it out. And now we're going to split our problem into two smaller problems, right? So we have our first problem where everybody inside thinks that everything is just fine outside. And we have our second problem where everybody, or there are people inside who think that it is lying to us. And now we just need to get our x by itself. So we'll subtract 7 from both sides. So we have 2x equals negative 3, divide by 2. So x equals a negative 3 halves. And then over here, we have 2x equals a negative 11, and divide by 2, and x equals a negative 11 halves. And we don't have to worry that it's a fraction because our calculator will be able to help us. So we just need to check these and make sure that they're going to work, right? So we're going to check them. So 4 times the absolute value of 2 times negative 3 halves plus 7, and that should equal 16. So 4 times the absolute value. Now if we plug this into the calculator, we're going to end up getting a positive 4. And the absolute value of 4 is 4, so 4 times 4 is 16, and here we see that those match. So x equals negative 3 halves is a solution. And now let's check our other one. So 4 times 2, the absolute value of 2 times negative 11 over 2 plus 7, and that should equal 16. So we're going to have 4 times the absolute value of something, and here we're going to end up getting a negative 4. And the absolute value of negative 4 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16, and those match. And so x equals negative 11 over 2 is also a solution. Let's do one more problem. Here, we have kind of a lot more going on. So we have our absolute value symbols. So we have two things we need to get rid of this time. We need to add our 3. We always do our adding and subtracting first. And now we have negative 2 times the absolute value of 5x minus 1 equals negative 8. Then we're going to need to divide both sides by negative 2. And that's going to leave us with the absolute value of 5x minus 1 equals positive 4. And 4 is a positive number, so we're able to work out our problem. So we split it into two smaller problems. 5x minus 1 equals 4, and 5x minus 1 equals negative 4. And then we're going to solve for x. So add 1 to both sides, divide by 5. So here we have x equals 1. Then we're going to add 1 to both sides, divide by 5. We're going to get a fraction here, and that's okay. And now we just need to check those and see if they're right. Alright, so let's check those. Negative 2 times the absolute value of 5 times 1 minus 1 minus 3, and that should equal a negative 11. So negative 2 times the absolute value of 4 minus 3. So negative 2 times 4 minus 3, and that's going to give us a negative 11. So our first one works. And then we'll just check our second one. Negative 2 times the absolute value. And again, make sure you're using your calculator so that way you don't have any problems with your fractions. So I have negative 2 times the absolute value of negative 4 minus 3. So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4 though. And so here I'm going to have a negative 11, which is what we wanted it to equal. So we see that that works as well. So those are a little more complex absolute value problems, but that is how you solve and check for those. Oops. Try to make this so you can see it. So again, make sure that you're always checking to make sure that you've got your work set. So each absolute value problem gets broken down into two problems to solve them.